Good evening and welcome to Have I Got News For You? I'm Boris Johnson. In the news this week, despite a mix-up at the printers, the press launch of the government's new Say No to Drugs campaign goes ahead. In Westminster, there's trouble for Tony Blair as Gordon Brown's nephew turns up with a cleverly folded resignation letter. And for the second day in succession, America's worst weatherman sticks to his forecast of occasional cloud with sunny intervals. On Ian Hislop's team is an NHS doctor and a stand-up comedian who once wrote a series featuring two orthopaedic surgeons set on the Isle of Wight. Nothing funny about that, you might think, and unfortunately the BBC agreed. Please welcome Dr. Phil Hammond. And with Paul Merton tonight is a radio DJ who, the moment she knew she was pregnant, vowed to put her foul-mouthed, beer-swigging, fag-smoking days behind her. A vow which lasted precisely 9 months. So well done you. Please welcome Sara Cox. And we start with round one. Ian and Phil, take a look at this.
Oh, it's a jab. They've run out of flu vaccine, so we're putting water in there. They'll never know. Last one in the fridge. How about that? Aren't you lucky? That was... And 2 lucky turkeys. That's the flu vaccine crisis, which Patricia Hewitt, lovely health secretary, has squarely dumped on GPs.
So it's your fault?
It was our fault to start with, but actually it was the government's fault because they put out a health warning about bird flu, which has got nothing to do with seasonal flu, but there was this mix-up in the message that said if you have seasonal flu and you have sex with your parrot or... maybe one of the larger budgies or a finch or whatever, then you might get some interspecies mingling. And so lots of people rushed down to the doctor. We've had the largest take-up ever. So
it's a kind of piece of Prussian organisation, then, that they've contrived not to have enough flu vaccine, because according to you, we don't need it. Is that the point?
It's all about killing the poor, yes. We don't want to... Basically what happens is the sort of assertive middle-class people are always at the front of the queue, so they come down and get it, and then by the time the people with, you know, one leg and chronic asthma and diabetes and have to wheel up the hill to get to the surgery, it's all gone. It's a solution to the pensions crisis.
If you do get bird flu and then you have sex with a healthy parrot...
Right.
Don't blame the
Should
parrot.
we be advising?
Don't blame the parrot.
But you should still use a condom, because if we mix up bird flu and chlamydia... bird flu and chlamydia, we're all going down, aren't we? That would be just shocking.
What does Patricia Hewitt not know the difference between?
Arse and elbow.
Very good.
She didn't know the difference between the number of vaccines put aside for people in England and the number of vaccines put aside for people in the UK in general. She got her numbers completely wrong.
Another medical story this week. Dr. Phil, what's happening to fat people in Ipswich?
They roll into Norwich.
Yes. They're being denied various operations, including hip and knee replacements. It's a fantastic ruse for cutting the waiting list of a stroke. You just deny any treatment to fat people, and you have no waiting list.
Is it
hey, look, the waiting lists have gone down.
I can't work out from your answer whether you're pro or anti-fat people.
I'm very anti not treating them, you know.
You're very anti, so you're very pro-treating fat
The human
people,
condition, we're all brought down by our own foibles and failures, aren't we, Boris? And...
This is what all impartial observers would agree is the government's totally shambolic response to the flu vaccine shortage. The front page of the Express highlighted the fact that pensioners are having to pay up to £60 for flu jabs, although some pensioners are sadly still ignoring the advice to wrap up warm. Paul and Sarah, here's yours.
OK, well, that's David Cameron, failing to play sports, as all politicians do, when this is the return of the Exorcist. David Davis, I'm losing this way, come this way. William Hague, he might come back. That's the theory, isn't it? And this is Paxman having a go at David Cameron the other day. It was quite controversial, wasn't he? And David Cameron had to pull him up and tell him off for assuming that everybody who sits in front of you is a hypocrite or a liar.
I think you're on the right track. This certainly relates to the exciting contest to discover who is going to be Britain's next Prime Minister. Now,
and we all know it's going to be you, Boris.
we all know it's just... Very kind of you to say, Ian. We all know it's going to be David Cameron. If anybody out there...
but he's a good friend of yours, isn't he?
Yes, he is, yes.
Have you come out for him, Boris? You've come up the camera.
I think everything in the past should be forgotten, like Cameron.
I think he's going to be terrific. Now, I've asked you some questions.
Is he going to give you a job?
Say
Sorry,
again?
let me ask the questions, Boris.
No, I'm sorry. I asked the questions. The question I have to ask you is what happened? No, it's you. What happened? I know you didn't.
I can see you as Shadow Home Secretary. Bowman, who are you?
I put it to my honourable opponent.
Yes. What's the question?
The question is, what kind of ambush did Jeremy Paxman try to spring on David Cameron?
Was it one of those
Brilliant.
where
Go on, Sarah.
did he dig a hole and cover it with leaves and a net? And then when he came along and he fell down through the hole through the leaves.
And he'd lured David Cameron from the hotel by laying a trail of tiger urine, and he followed that and fell in the trap.
And then through the leaves and in the net.
I said, "Oh, Joe, this is so silly," and he was hanging upside down in a net.
I think we're being frivolous.
On this show.
I think we are. He asked him
What a pink pussy was.
Right, I knew you'd say it.
Why did you keep asking me?
Why don't we see it? Let's see it.
David Cameron, do you know what a pink pussy is?
I don't think I do.
Do you know what a slippery nipple is?
Oh, that's a drink.
Does he write his own questions?
I think they're sent in by children.
Now, who wants to see more of Paxman and Cameron?
I do.
Yeah, I do too. Come on, let's see some more of this.
We lost the election. It's time to rethink. It's time to look at our
So
policies.
it's pure expediency?
No, it isn't. Look, this is the trouble with these interviews, Jeremy. You come in, you sit someone down and treat them like they're some cross between a fake or a hypocrite, and you give no time for anyone to answer their questions. It does your profession no favours at all,
Right.
and it's
Now
no
you've
good
got
for
that off
political discourse. What's
Right,
the
now
point?
you've got that off your chest, perhaps you can tell us.
That's the question properly, because I'd really like to.
Good stuff, eh?
Boris, what is a pink pussy, do we know?
It's a kind of drink,
I
according
know,
to
but
you.
what's in it?
What's in it?
I don't
My
know.
guess is alcohol.
Have you ever had anything like that?
No, well, no. Have you?
No, not to my knowledge.
Have you snorted cocaine?
I tried to, but
You've tried to snort cocaine?
unsuccessfully a long time ago.
Sorry.
I don't want to get any trouble.
Why are you using a vacuum cleaner? What are you using a
Getting your ear
vacuum
off,
cleaner?
I
What was
sneezed.
unsuccessful about
I
it?
sneezed.
Right.
So the four people around you who took cocaine, because you went...
And David
It
Cameron
was
went,
only a
"Hey!"
very small, there was only a very small quantity. It was a long, long time ago. I think it's probably a totally disgusting and ridiculous thing to do. And what else can I say about it?
Sounds
very,
good.
very, 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 very wrong and bad.
I think you're commendably honest, actually, Boris. You are.
Yes,
You're far too honest to be a politician.
I think recklessly honest is my listen, I think we should move off this.
Yes, let's
this
move on,
subject.
Is he a bit of a wobbler, old David? What do you call him, Dave?
Old Paxman.
No,
Evidently.
David, is he a wobbler? They keep saying he keeps vacillating over Europe and
No,
not actually
absolutely
giving
not.
any substance to stuff. Does he wobble?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, no.
The only thing he's wobbling on is, should he give Boris a job? I think a show of hands would help.
No, no, no. Who
Are you
has...
treating this as an audition?
My objective is to survive. Who has both candidates supposedly been courting?
You!
No, not me. No, both candidates.
William Hague.
Brilliant. According to The Guardian...
Is he?
Yeah. The pressure is on William Hague to leave the back benches and return to the front as an act of loyalty. Now, the question is, why might he not bother to do that?
He's earning too much money not being in frontline politics, basically.
$1 million a year, isn't it?
Yeah.
According to the Register of Members' Interest, William is top of the league table of cash in terms of money earned through work which is dependent on their status as an MP. Who are the top three?
Him. Anne Widdecombe.
Yep,
George Galloway.
correct.
And then you're fourth, aren't you?
Yeah. David Cameron was recently quizzed by Jeremy Paxman on the names of cocktails served at a nightclub chain he used to work for, including a pink pussy and a slippery nipple. Trying to be clever, Paxman merely came across as a pompous arse. One of the less popular cocktails on the menu. This week, the register of members' interest showed that William Hague is only £1 million a year. According to The Guardian, Hague has realised there is more to life than being Prime Minister. Tell that to Gordon Brown. This week, Tony Blair revealed that he spent 26 nights in the summer in Sir Cliff Richard's Barbados villa. Even more surprisingly, it was a house swap, with Cliff at number 10 running the country. And what a fine Deputy Prime Minister Hank Marvin turned out to be. Take a look at this.
This is the news that Boris is going to be the new Home Secretary. Everybody's cheering and applauding. Obviously, this is the drink licensing laws have changed. That's Boris after a night out. Go on, get in there, son.
I love that he's using the toddler tactic there, when you try and put a disgruntled toddler into a pushchair and they just stretch and strain, strain, tense. Yeah. You've got to try and karate chop them in the middle to bend them over.
That's the pushchair.
Yeah, into the pushchair, it's the buggy, yeah.
So this is about licence laws have changed after all these years. Since the First World War, in fact, and so we can now drink whenever we like.
That's absolutely right. It's the change to the licensing laws to try to bring a more continental approach to Britain.
They look continental, didn't they?
Out there today on the cafe, 3 o'clock, small Pernod speaking French. Bloody marvellous. Overnight, it's changed everything. Yeah. It's a stroke of genius.
I couldn't speak French yesterday. I'm now word perfect.
If there is a rise in violent crime, how will the government react?
It'll have a crackdown.
No,
That's what it tends to do. One day it liberalises the laws, the next day it says crackdown. Don't drink, drink. Our government is like one of those lights. Smoke, don't smoke.
Well, actually, I don't have an idea. You could actually have a drink called binge. Why doesn't someone market a drink called binge?
Is it because you see headlines that say binge drinking kills?
I think Health Secretary probably for you, Boris. I think you're right. You put a market down there.
Why didn't you be Health Secretary? Let's have a vote.
All right, it's a bad idea.
Stick to your policies.
No, what we were just having was a focus group, and... Never mind, stagger on. This is the relaxation.
That's a good policy.
This is the...
Worked for the Tories for 200 years.
And believe me, it'll work again. This is the relaxation of Britain's licensing laws. Before the new law came in, The Independent pointed out, Britons are the 3rd heaviest drinkers in Europe, behind the Finns and the Irish. So, come on, chaps, we can do it. According to the government, the new police powers will shut down establishments blighted by disorder and drunkenness, which has already led to the closure of 3 schools in Manchester. I'm not attacking Manchester. The Sun pointed out that binge drinking is nothing new. In 1542, one writer noted that beer drinking was to the detriment of many English men. He'd obviously had a few when he wrote that. And so to round 2, and it is a welcome return for the Have I Got News For You Wheel of Fortune. No, we're not Wheel of Fortune, Wheel of News. The Wheel of News, this is it.
That was so smoothly done, wasn't it?
This is the Wheel of News. Now,
who needs rehearsals?
Ian and Phil, get a grip. You get the first spin. Oh, it's a yellow chap.
That's what Bush said when he met the Prime Minister of China.
He was in a press conference and a journalist had said he was a little bit off his game and he got in a big strop, had a big showbiz tantrum and marched out of the door into the broom closet.
It was when he got stuck, he couldn't get through the door.
Couldn't get through the door, no. Yeah. And made one of those extraordinary faces that only he can make.
Yeah.
Dr. Phil, as usual, makes a completely accurate diagnosis. George Bush has been on a visit to China and Mongolia, and you're absolutely right that he was trying to leave a press conference in characteristically flamboyant fashion. And I wonder if we can see him leaving that press conference now.
A very quick follow-up.
Thank you all very much.
Not only should that door have been locked, but the wall should have come in slowly like that.
Now, perhaps we should just look at that face you mentioned, Dr. Phil. What else has Bush been in the news for this week?
Oh, yes, he said he was going to bomb Al Jazeera.
Yes,
supposedly. And there's a gagging order. The Attorney General said no one is allowed to mention this, so I'm very glad I didn't answer that question.
Are you not allowed to say what you just said?
No, you're not.
Are you now not allowed to repeat that Bush told Tony Blair that he wanted to bomb the Al Jazeera network in Qatar?
No.
No, you can't say that, or you'll be locked up, Boris, forever.
Is that right?
If the memo was leaked to you, you would publish it in The Spectator?
I would certainly publish it, just for this reason. I think he's completely crazy to try and stop people knowing the exact facts. Everybody now thinks that George Bush wanted to bomb Al Jazeera. The only way to dispel this impression is for the thing to be published.
But what is on,
And I hope
Boris?
you will publish it in Private Eye.
Yeah, certainly, if we get the memo before you.
Paul and Sarah, next spin is for you.
OK. Then it comes on George Bush again. Like that.
It's a greenie. It's a
The
greenie.
RAC. Have you done any good story about Royal Automobile Club this week?
This week, it's about the RAC route finder on the computer that sent travellers wanting to get from Nottingham to Bideford in Devon, avoiding motorway on a very scenic route indeed. How far do you think it is from Nottingham to Bideford?
204.
Close, 248 miles, and likely to take 6 hours and 14 minutes.
Yeah.
How long do you think the RAC suggested?
They're quite generous, aren't they? With it? Was it like 4 days?
It was 1,070 miles on a route likely to take 2 days. Customers were invited to start out from Nottingham, drive to Chester, take the A55 to Holyhead, take the ferry to Dublin, drive to Cork via Shannon and Limerick, from Cork take the ferry to Roscoff in France, and then take the ferry back to Plymouth. That's true. How did the RAC explain the problem?
We don't know what we're doing.
An embarrassed spokesperson explained the route finder suffered a technical glitch. Adding, just for good measure, people should not go that way. The route includes 3 ferry journeys and requires you to drive 800 miles more than necessary, but is still proving popular as it avoids Birmingham. Ian and Phil, you get the next spin.
It's a domino.
Yes.
The World Domino Effect Championship was ruined because Sparrow flew in and knocked over 28,000 dominoes, and somebody was so angry they shot the sparrow.
And apparently it's quite a rare sparrow.
It's even rarer now.
Yeah.
Where was it, in Belgium or somewhere? Or Holland?
It was in Holland. It was in The Hague. You've got exactly the right answer. This is the attempt on the world domino toppling record, which was spot by a sparrow. The bird flew into the building and knocked over 23,000 dominoes, which incidentally is a record for a sparrow. Paul and Sarah, next spin for you. Yeah. No.
George Bush.
No.
I see. Bird on the domino.
You've done all.
I see.
Here we go.
I see.
It's a fat chat.
That's Richard Griffiths, isn't it? Who was last Friday, I think towards the end of last week, he stopped the play he was in because there was somebody who had a mobile phone, and on the third occasion of the mobile phone ringing, he sort of stopped the play and basically asked the woman to leave.
And also he's doing a similar face that Bush did when he couldn't get through that door.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, he's doing the same face. So, he's basically... Some people have been sort of shouting out and at a phone. There was one the other day was reported in The Guardian. Somebody's on stage, they hear the phone ring, and the woman goes, hang on, yeah, I'm watching a play. No, not really. So it's all that sort of going. So, basically, it's about people who go to the theatre and don't turn off their mobile phones, and Richard Griffiths stood up and said it's annoying.
Does Griffiths have form when it comes to ejecting phone-wielding audience members?
Yes.
He did it at the History Boys, at the National.
How do you know that?
It's
It was
a
in the
fact
paper.
that's been reported.
All right, that's very good. He was performing in the History Boys at the National when he stopped his performance to ask a man to stand up, leave the auditorium, and never, ever come back. Poor chap, it emerged that he was deaf and didn't know that his phone was ringing.
Well, surely he should have it on vibrate. Yeah.
Why did he leave when he was told to?
Yeah. How did they know they were talking about him?
That is a very good point. How could he hear if he couldn't?
Why was he watching the play in the first place?
Yeah.
I think that chap's excuse that he was deaf is looking very thin.
Yeah.
If he was...
It's like Manchester, Birmingham and the deaf.
Yeah.
Just keep it real, Boris. Keep
This
it
is
real.
not deafist. I'm just saying that if he was deaf... Why did he need a mobile phone if he couldn't hear?
Vibrates.
Anyway, I think we've cracked that one. This is
Are we
indeed...
still...
this
Is it
the
still
act
going on,
of-
this wheel of whatever... The
It's
wheel of eternity?
It's jumping out time.
A bonus spin. This is both teams equally. Bonus spin. Now.
It's an aeroplane. Paper aeroplane. They've designed a paper aeroplane and they've sort of followed the aerodynamics of real planes and have made this paper plane fly further than any other paper plane, apart from a paper plane that was flown in Colorado about 3-4 years ago that reached something like 35 feet, but they thought that might have been wind assisted.
Very good, but actually, do you know, a paper plane has gone far further than 35 feet.
Has it?
207 feet 4 inches.
My God.
Isn't that unbelievable? Now, where was the paper plane contest being held?
Cambridge.
Sarah, I look to you for sanity here.
You do well. It's the wrong place to look, I'm afraid. I've no idea.
Tell us. Put us out of your misery.
It was the Great Hall of Leeds University. And why were none of the records beaten?
Because the hall was too small. It kept hitting the wall.
The Great Hall was not great enough, and it kept hitting the wall, which you would have thought they could have worked out before they launched the competition. And what's the most common mistake that people make when they make a paper aeroplane?
Make them out of concrete.
That is indeed a mistake, but not the most common mistake.
Oh, okay.
They make the nose too long, folks. When you make a paper dart, keep that nose short.
Oh, honestly.
I think who thinks it's going to take too long?
I don't think that's hardly been out
This is what his lot
That nose
may
is
have
too
got
long,
up.
isn't it? 'Cause that-
This is
Let's have a
what-
look, let's have a
this is-
Look at that.
Right.
You see,
I
my
love
education
you.
wasn't entirely wasted.
Let's get rid of the other three that are holding us back. Give us a kiss, it's Christmas.
You completely eclipsed the thing they were going to do for me, because I was meant to produce at this stage out of this bag of tricks. This is in fact a model of the world record
Yeah, too elaborate.
holding. This is the Avenger, and I have a terrible feeling it's not going to go nearly as far as the one that old Hislop just made in about 10 seconds. Let's just see. Oh, it is quite good. Oh, it isn't not too bad, is it? There you go. The Avenger's not too bad. So, according to the Times, the winning design is held together with sticky tape and can fly almost 100 feet. Aeroflot have already ordered a dozen. Which means at the end of this round, it's Ian and Phil with 5. And... very feeble. And Paul and Sarah with 7.
Oh,
which I think... Not long to go now, folks. Get a grip, get a grip, get a grip. OK. Under control. We go now for the missing words round. This week's guest publication is Blonde Hair. I don't read it all. I tend to just go for the highlights. Here we go with what held up by giant penguin?
Antarctic Bank.
The answer.
Giant flipper. Don't know, tell us.
The answer, in fact, a train. A train driver caused delays on a German railway line after mistaking a giant toy penguin for a dead man in a tuxedo. I shouldn't laugh. I really shouldn't laugh.
No.
A German police inspector said, "We are at a loss to explain the presence of this very large penguin." Who said the Germans have no sense of humour? Next, what blamed on hairy armpits?
Global warming.
Is it low French birth rate? Actually, you've got quite a lot of people like that there, haven't you?
Very funny. Hairy armpits.
Boys, your batteries are running out.
Hairy...
It's true. It's true. We've done an experiment. We've done an experiment. There's another Boris behind us playing the drums like that. Because he's on the battery.
The answer is Jim Bannerman was asked to leave a gym because his hairy armpits might ruin the equipment. The fitness fanatic said, if you can't sweat at a gym, where can you sweat? This is a jolly good question. They want me to make another joke about
the
Liverpool,
autocue
which I'm
says
not
when
gonna...
waiting to do an interview with Radio Liverpool.
Which I regret. And finally, age and injuries forced Charles to what?
Give up polo. Sell the big issue.
You're right. The answer is give up polo. The prince said, I will go on as long as I bounce when I fall off. At which point, the vicar said, normally you say till death us do part. And finally... That's really That brings us, alas, to the end of the show, as the final scores are as follows. Paul and Sarah, you are on 9. Ian and Phil have only 7. On which note, we say thank you to our panellists, Ian Hislop and Dr. Phil Hammond, Paul Merton and Sarah Cox, and I leave you with news that there's a disappointing sight for the former international Playboy and glamour photographer Lord Lichfield as he arrives in heaven. It's a bit bad taste, that is bad taste. In the White House kitchens, George Bush reassures staff he's okay, despite locking himself in the microwave. And at the Labour conference, there are suspicions that the sign writers still haven't been paid for last year. Good night.
Bringing up baby is easier said than done. Ben Elton's Blessed next here on BBC One Wales. Later, Stephen Fry has another game of QI. That's in half an hour over on BBC Two Wales.
So we just do this thing now where Boris will just do some retakes just for editing purposes, so it's nearly over, but it'll be just a few minutes. You can tell from how well it's going to go by where we have to start picking up from the show.
On Ian Hislop's team is...
The one thing to remember is no matter how long this goes on, the pubs will still be open.